Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Chance, and you are listening to A Chance to Strive. Saying that feels rewarding a little bit. I feel like I've gone through a lot of. Oh, I can cuss this in my show. I almost forgot about that. But I feel like I've gone through a shit ton of bullshit. Like right now, there's certain things I like to have them managed first before I kind of like open up about them and everything, just because I want to make sure I'm not doing certain things for the validation of other people. So there's a lot that I don't present to people because I understand what I used to struggle with, which was people pleasing, right? So the thing about people pleasing, and when you're in like this mode and you're really grinding on yourself, you'd probably find it beneficial to isolate yourself. And what I mean by that is, as a people pleaser, as someone who really struggled with that, and I to this day struggle with it. So I'm not presenting this as in like I struggled with this, and because I understand it, I got over it. No, it generally is one of those things where it is very hard for you to get away from it. And I think a lot of has to do with like the type of love you were given as a child. I think for me, a lot of the times I felt like I really needed to protect myself and the image that my family had placed upon me. Whether or not it was healthy or not, I still felt like that was what I had to do. And I'll break this down because it's probably the exact same for a lot of people. And I will say this, right? When you guys are trying to figure out your trauma or big picture flaws you have, and you're like, I don't know where this stems from. Or you're trying to figure out, why is this something that I struggle with? The majority of it will stem from your childhood, especially the types of trauma where you generally are not aware of where it comes from. Majority of the times when that does happen, from my experience and what I've seen, which means it's not always like this, but from what I've seen is a lot of the times you have no idea why you're dealing with this flaw or this trait, right? Majority of the times it's because it's from your past, way in the past. Majority of the times it starts off with your childhood. And at a certain point, you don't realize it, but your brain is kind of like a computer, right? And the whole idea behind that is like it learns on its own, which is something that a lot of us don't realize. It's like you put the proper steps in place, and then you maintain the discipline, and you get better at things. You learn things. But what you don't realize is, if I'm somebody that says, hey, a lot is happening in my household and I am a very emotional person, I don't have the capacity to constantly deal with the chaos that happens in this household because I have no one to bring my emotions to. If you're somebody like that, right, you probably will find that you find it very hard to open up to people. Or for me, specifically for me, the big thing that my mom always told me, right, and I want to put this out there. My mom is a loving mother, right? Sometimes parents' approaches just don't. It's just they don't always choose the approach that's the best suited for you. And for me, a big part of my childhood was always being the person where I didn't need anything. I don't think parents realize it's like sometimes you give people credit for certain things, but certain disclaimers got to be set in place. And the thing for me is I've paid a lot of attention to how my mom parents me to learn how to be a better parent down the line. And the reason why I say that is when I say my mom is an amazing person, if I ever meet a woman that reminds me of my mother, it is very hard to not have an attraction for that. And the reason why I'm saying this is because my mom is someone who's very loving. She's very caring. She's everything that you can imagine that is good in a woman, genuinely. Does she also come with the flaws? Absolutely. She's flawed. But the thing is, it's like she's very open-minded. She's willing to... We just got to this point. I want to make sure that is clear. We just got to a point where it's like my mom allows me to adjust and show her how to pivot her parenting for me. Because my mom's intentions, it is always great. That is one thing that a lot of people don't have, where it's kind of like, oh, sometimes my mom is just saying this because she's being petty, or I hear a lot of stories about mothers like that. My mom was never that person. But I'm emphasizing this to help people understand that your parents can be a great fucking individual. They can be so caring. But then you feel like a lot of the things that they throw at you are bullshit. You feel like, oh, you don't care. Why aren't you listening to me? Because at times, what I've realized is our parents don't have access to the growth that you have in your teenage years or your young adult life. Right now, if I were to really sit and think about it, I have gone through so much growth, so much so much development within the past year and a half, 2 years. My mom didn't have access to a lot of that. And the thing is, it's like, we're very clueless where things have to work our way. You're the parent. We almost expect that. My mom does not have access to how I think and everything that I understand. So it is very hard to not be on my back. It's hard for her not to nag me if she doesn't have access to, he has this knowledge. He understands this. He understands if this, like, I had a conversation with my mom earlier today where I literally was like, yo, I know you think you're helping. And this is me giving advice because I know a lot of people, we really want to parent our parent. And then sometimes we get so frustrated not understanding that, bro, the level of frustration they probably had to deal with is nothing compared to what we deal with as the child. Until we get into that place where you are a father or you are a mother and now you have kids, I don't think you'll ever understand it. I am saying this because I am taking care of 2 kids right now, right? 4 and 7. I love these little girls, right? But the thing I've realized is everything I asked for, in terms of like, ask God, ask the universe, if you're not religious and stuff like that, right? You're like, yo, I want to become this person. I want more patience, that, this, that. I asked God for it. And then God said he got me. Yeah, be ready to accept the blessings that you were requesting. Because for me, I wanted more patience. I wanted to have the capacity for more. I wanted to be able to manage everything, to understand what it's really like to be a provider. God said, I got you. I'm going to give you 2 kids. They're not going to be toddlers, you know? So you'll at least understand, like, if you do something bad, they are learning from it. So I'm constantly cautious of everything that I'm doing. My patience, like, so what I'm really trying to say is give your parents some fucking grace. And a lot of y'all don't realize that it's like when it's multiple kids and every single one of you guys is different, she can't say, I want to be this type of parent. It's what type of parent do you need? 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 And it's one thing that I heard, which was ridiculous to me, but it made so much sense. No 2 kids have the same parents. Me and my brother do not have the same parents. Me and my sister do not have the same parents. We were parented very, very differently. So for me, if you do not have a parent that is very understanding, I can't tell you what to necessarily do outside of the fact that expectations got to go down and your ability to deal with their bullshit or the capacity that you have for it, you have to find a way to manage that. If it means I'm not next to you guys, I'm not in the same town, I'm not in the same country. Some people, it really is that ridiculous where it's like your parents or your family needs to know they don't have access to you for them to not ask you for something. And I'm that person where it's like, hey, I have a podcast today. I'm about to leave. And I get stuck in a 30-minute conversation about something where I didn't have to be part of it. So for me, it's like, understand what you have the capacity for. And this isn't even about parenting. This is about any relationship that you're going to be investing into. Understand your capacity and understand your non-negotiables. With parents, it's a little different. You can't just enforce that. But what I've found is, which doesn't help, because I used to be someone where I was very manipulative. I understood a lot, but I did not care enough for how I affected other people. Very transparent with that shit. Even till today's day, I found myself slipping because I understand certain things so well, and at times I'm not genuine in the way that I execute them. So I still deal with this, right? And a lot of the times when I bring up my flaws, I'm going to make sure I emphasize I still am trying to get over this. Because I don't want you guys to look at me and put me on this pedestal, and you're like, damn, he's doing this shit and I can't. Because I know how that feels. Because I've looked at other people and I'm like, he's doing this and I can't do it. What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. Everyone has their own agenda and everyone has their own time. Their own timeline. And to me, you have to be accepting of that, right? Sometimes you're dealing with something and it's amazing, you're celebrating yourself. Other people around you, they might celebrate with you, but they're not the person in that position, right? Why don't they ask, why not me? So my point is, when you focus too much on comparison, at a certain point, you do take the joy away from that person you're trying to share it with. So have the capacity for what you're willing to handle. And if you don't have it, find a way to adjust or pivot. And if you can't, you just got to drop it. Like, if I'm in the gym, right, and you're telling me, all right, we're doing some shoulder presses, I'm like, all right, I'm pretty good with those. 225, you want me to walk around with it? I can't hold on to that. I know for a fact this weight, whatever it is, right, metaphorically, of course, if I'm going to pick it up, and I know I have to go through life with it, which means I have to continue maintaining this, I need to make sure it's something I can handle, which means I'm not going to grab something that's 225 and be like, all right, I can do 25 for 2. And if you need me to walk for 10 minutes, maybe I can give you 60. You feel me? Sometimes we kind of trick ourselves like, oh, no, I can deal with this. I have the capacity for it. But you plan on staying next to this person for the next 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And some of y'all that are like 16, maybe 10 plus years, you have to learn what you can deal with. Because at a certain point, unless you're able to communicate what's bothering you, you will die in silence. And it is not a pretty thing. Of course, if you feel like you can't really say anything, you might want to change your environment. You shouldn't be around people that can't make you feel comfortable enough to just say, hey, you're affecting me. You're doing something to me. But yeah, when it comes to your parent, you have to be a little manipulative with it. And what I mean by that is at times they're flawed, and what they have access to, they do think that it is what's best. But the world that we're in is constantly changing. And at times you have access to how it works more than they do. In terms of like the discipline and how you should go about life and everything like that, the life lessons, big picture things, no, experience is the best teacher. They will always have access to that. But when it comes to, I live with myself 24 hours a day. Sometimes you see me for about 3 hours in that day. Who do you think has access to more? Who do you think has access to who do you think has more access to understand what I truly need? I do. So for my mother, she's not someone that responds well to logic. I'm a very logical person. I went into business degree and everything like that. I'm a very logical person, but I'm very into my emotions, which is why I can do something like this without too much preparation, because part of it generally is my interest. I don't do this podcast because I like doing a podcast, genuinely. I like having this podcast because I was able to do exactly what I wanted to do with it, which was when someone is going through something, I can randomly be on this podcast and I say something that affects someone in a country in Africa, which is absurd to me. So for me, I understand that I can appeal to my mother's emotions, and that's what works with her. My mom never has a conversation where she's like, when it comes to logic, you understand, no. But the thing is, she does it well, and I appreciate her for that, or else, to be honest, I probably wouldn't have the emotional intelligence that I have today if it wasn't for her. As well, and I'm speaking about the good parts of her as well as the bad. Sometimes it's like you blame your parents for something that they didn't do when you benefited so much from it. There's a lot of my mom's parenting that was hands off. At times, the little kid in me that's a mama's boy, it's like, damn, bro, pay a little more attention. But her not doing that, it got me in the habit of doing so many things that I worked great for. So I understand that. So when it comes with her, I'm like, all right, if you pivot with me and there's so much I still get from you even when you mess up, let me get you to correct it. And I understand enough to, if you go the wrong way about it, I'll understand why I was wrong and what works for me and why it didn't work. So for me, I get a lot of information no matter the interaction with my mother because she's open and she's very caring. She's nurturing. So for me, the only time I actually got to get across my mom was I sat there and I cried in front of her. It's one of those things where it's kind of like I've always been that person where because I was always told, yeah, you manage everything on your own and everything like that. When I'm going through a terrible time, I don't tell people what's necessarily happening. And especially in my household, I'm normally the person that's providing that support for a lot of people, especially when it comes to like emotional support, or conflict resolution. If something is happening in a family, people know to call Chance. Intermediate family. I don't give people that much access to me. That's one thing you should also be very careful with. When you have the ability to do amazing things, limit who has access to that. Because the more you keep on doing these things, they're only amazing because they're not so easy to do. When everyone has access to it at a certain point, you're going to slip away from this thing that makes you so great because people are now starting to take advantage of it. Whatever you have that is beautiful, that is of value, prioritize it, care for it. A lot of people are not going to prioritize your emotions unless you learn how to do that shit. And as someone who's a people pleaser, as someone who at times cares too much, I find myself putting myself in situations where I knew better, but I still put myself in a situation and now I have to deal with the consequences of it. Most of the times I'm the only one that's impacted because I'm the only one that cares so much. So, yeah, I cried in front of my mother. I told her like, yo, I want a relationship with you. I don't want to lie to you, which means there are times you're going to see me doing something and I'm not going to lie about it. I am not the person that actually enjoys lying to my mother. I genuinely hate it. Like, even when I stopped smoking and I picked the smoking bag up for a little bit. It hurt her because she was so happy that I stopped because thinking, like, I didn't communicate the stop. For her, it was kind of like, oh, you're fully done with this. For me, it was just kind of like, I want to have control of this. But even conversations like that, I'm very honest. I'm very transparent. So crying in front of her, I was like, okay, these are emotions. You can respond to these a little bit better. And I think I was telling her, like, I want us to have a better relationship. And she uttered the words to me, are you trying to tell me how to control my house? And I'm not going to hold you. I will be very honest. I broke down and cried. And for me, it was kind of like, wow, your son is sitting in front of you, telling you he wants a better relationship with you. And the only place your mind went is the loss of control. If you give in and parent me the way I'm asking for it, I'm telling you what my needs are. You're not having to figure that out. A lot of parents struggle to figure out what their kids need, especially as they get older. And as I'm getting older, I'm trying to get closer to you. It's a little different. My mom is on the older side, so for me, a lot of my pride and ego when it comes to certain things I want to apologize for, pivot from, I say fuck it. And I say that not because I'm like, oh, I'm just accepting her flaws, but to a certain degree, you do have to be accepting of people's flaws. I have a lot of flaws, and she's seen every single one I've had. She never changed the type of love she gave me. So for me, it's like, I can be upset, but I need to learn how to compartmentalize my emotions and still show up for her, because she does it 24/7. There's probably a time where I yelled at her, reminded her of something that traumatized her in the past, and then she still went back to cooking, making me a plate, bringing me that plate. So for me, it's like, have more grace for your parents, right? And the more grace you have for them and the more understanding, the more knowledge they see that you have, if you have a parent where them adjusting how they show up for you, if that is something that that type of parent is capable of doing, I do think that is your best option. Understand what's going to hit. And I think for me, someone who's communication, you're not supposed to choose how you want to say something. You're supposed to choose how to say something that works best for your target audience, which means if it's marketing, I need to make sure it's getting in front of the right people. If I'm about to give a speech to somebody, I need to know who's in the audience, because I can't talk the exact same way to every single person. If it's a group of people where it's like, they're from where I'm from, they're from my high school, and I am speaking very proper, there's no slang, no cuss, and I'm not saying that's required, but in that environment, that's what appeals to them the most. So if I want to get in front of them and give a message that hits, it has to be what works the best for them. And a lot of times we're very stuck in, this is a good thing, everything about it is good, why isn't it working? Just adjust your approach. And with certain people, it doesn't work, and that's when you just pull back. But if you're willing to adjust and you're willing to do so much and it still doesn't work, for me, that's not a loss. I hate situations in my past where I felt like I didn't give it my all. Giving it your all doesn't mean you got to drain yourself and bring your capacity to a certain point where you have to start this whole entire process where you get into a depressive episode because you can't manage what's happening. Your mental health has gone to shit. That's not what I mean by invest your all. Invest your all to a point where it's not self-destructive. I'm going to do everything I possibly can to make this work, except losing myself. And that's something I wasn't willing to do. In a lot of the relationships that I was with and a lot of the bonds that I was with, I wasn't willing to walk away. Even if I noticed the effort that I was putting in became counterproductive for myself. Because I'm doing this hoping the situation gets better. If the situation gets better, we're happier. But it doesn't really always work like that, you know? Sometimes you have to learn how to pull away. I struggle with it a lot. And I was happy recently that I got with someone that helped me understand just how important it is to pull away in general. And I say this because you don't understand. I was someone where I was very logical, but I was also very emotional. They don't work too well together, right? Somebody who's very emotional, you just have to learn how to manage your emotions. For me, I always have two complete different voices on my shoulders, right? Kind of like the little thing you see on certain shows, the devil and an angel. I have the side of me that's very logical, right? And I'm gonna break down something that I've done, which is terrible. But like I said, I don't want to sit here and have you guys look at me like I am someone that is on a pedestal. I am not. I have a lot of great traits. I do. But I understand that I'm flawed in a lot of ways. And I gotta get over that. I can't be content with the fact that because I have a lot of good in me, I should be able to tolerate all the BS or all the parts of me that I know affect other people. I can't do that, bro. Like, you guys come to me with a lot of your problems. And at times you come to me with something that I probably put somebody through. You got cheated on. It's tearing you apart. It brought you to a depressive episode. So to come here and give you guys advice and everything like that and not hold myself accountable for the same ways that I'm fucking up. The same ways that y'all are being hurt. Sometimes I do that to people. I need you guys to understand that. It's kind of like I'm not this perfect being. And at times I think because of my social media and because I'm trying to tailor everything to you guys, you don't understand who's necessarily doing all of that for you. I am just as flawed as anybody watching this. You see a lot of great in me. But at times, You only think there's that much of a gap between us. And I'm only saying this because I know people reach out to me where it's like I look up to that. I understand that. You can look up to me if there's something that I have that you also want to acquire. If I have a podcast, you want to get one. Fuck it. Look up to me. If you realize my emotional intelligence is ridiculous, look up to me. But do not look up to me because you think I am a better person than you. It does not make me better because you can, there's literally, it doesn't matter who's listening to this currently. If you are listening to this, there are multiple things you do a lot better than me. You don't have access to it. And at times, and I'll say why I'm emphasizing this after I've broken it down. But I don't think people understand. Like, the comparison is the thief of joy. I hear it all the time. And the thing is, a lot of times, certain things sound very basic, right? And for me, as someone who looks at, bro, I wasn't, I think 6th, 7th grade, and even way before that, but I'm just going to say something I did very religiously in those years. I had a class where at times it was a free period. Every single time we had a free period, one of my favorite things to do was look at random quotes. I would search up quotes about love, quotes about heartbreak, quotes about this, quotes about that. And the reason why I did that was I won't go through a lot of these heartbreaks. Some of these philosophers, psychologists, I won't ever have the same experiences or have the same drive to learn some of the same things they do. A lot of the times you choose certain things or you go doing certain things because something happened. And now it's like, okay, you decided to be, I was someone who got on a podcast, but that would have never happened if I didn't have a mentor that did a lot for me, had a lot of these conversations with me where now this feels easier, even though there's no one in front of me. To a certain degree, I've had these conversations enough to know if someone is listening, this is how I should deliver it. So for me, it's like at times you're not going to be able to do a lot of things. And the times you're not going to have access to it. But the more you compare yourself to people, it kills you. And it does it for me as someone who has things to show. Like if I sit here and I forget my flaws and I tell you the things that I've accomplished on paper and how good I look pretty fucking great. I will always say this. I look great on paper. But there's so many different moments where I'm not content with what I'm doing because someone excelled me at something. Right? Let's just say something as simple as like social media. I don't even care for it no more, right? But just because someone's growth has been linear, but it's been consistent. Mine was up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Very inconsistent. This was never my passion. This was never like the only thing that I'm investing myself into. No, I was always a college student. I started this in college. Every summer I've had an internship. I've never had a time where I did social media and on its own. And that person I'm referring to, they do that on their own. And because at a certain point, I was way past them and now this is their thing. Like they're investing themselves and I'm proud of them. But still in those moments, I'm like, damn, what am I doing? What am I not doing right? And I'm like, damn, bro, shouldn't the priority be to just congratulate the person that's succeeding at this? Like, this is your boy. Like, you literally support this man. In the very beginning of this journey, you were supporting it. And now it got to a point where they're surpassing you in this aspect, in this lane. And there was a reaction to it where it's like, you didn't really feel that great. And for me, those emotions don't sit well with me. The thought of anything taken away from me celebrating someone I care for, I pay attention to that. And this is the thing, right? I'm only human. It's a natural reaction to be jealous of something other people have that you want. I do want it, but I'm like, I have a choice to make. For them, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to go for. That's not the same decision I'm going to make. But somehow I still judge myself based off the same path that we have, which is absurd. So my point is, even with someone who's doing great, right? Even someone who actually is doing pretty good within that regards, the moment someone surpasses you or people that are above you, it's so easy to look at that. And once you start looking at that, you're dragging yourself in a hole. And I'm saying this because how are you ever going to be content if you're focused on what somebody's doing that's better than you? I do it, but I have to pull back and be like, yo, I'm using this for motivation. I have no emotions or resentment towards the person that is excelling and doing better than me currently at this. I just know if they can do it, I can do it too. Because I'm that nice. Not that I'm better than them. If they can do it, I can do it too. So when you start switching to that mindset, it's less so of a competition or it's kind of like, bro, I'm not going to lie, you're doing great, but I'm right behind you. Trust, I'm right behind you. Something like that, it's like you expressed everything to that person that you're celebrating and you're just like, but I ain't going to lie, you being here, it motivates me. that feels good for somebody who's gone to that level. So give them the opportunity to soak that, to let that sink in. A lot of times we're so stuck up and we don't want to admit people are doing other things for us. Bro, you don't understand how great it feels when my friends finally admit that, yeah, I'm going to the gym because of you. Like, stop it. You get me nervous. But generally, it's like, it makes me so happy. So knowing someone motivated me, and I didn't tell them because the initial reaction felt like jealousy and I was ashamed of it. Bro, it's understandable. We all go through it. You were a kid. You seen a kid with a toy. You didn't even care for the toy at first. But now you're like, damn, now that it's in your hands, it looks a little prettier. So it's embedded in our systems to react that way. Things are not fair. And sometimes you look at situations and you're like, you try to be logical. Why isn't it? You won't figure that answer out. So just take what you can get from the situation. Being stuck on the fact that you're comparing yourself to someone, it's never going to help. Say, hey, you know what? You're my motivation. You being there doesn't make me feel the greatest about myself. And I understand that there's nothing wrong with where I am currently. And I can manage this emotion so that way it doesn't fuck me up. But I want more. And seeing you get more, it made me want it even more. I ain't gonna lie, at first I was on some hating shit, but I was like, I got to slow down. That's my guy. But it's only because I want this so much. That's why that emotion was there. If you're just a jealous person, it doesn't matter what. I want to get that checked out and isolate yourself before creating new friendships and bonds and stuff like that. But yeah, so this episode was about giving your parents grace and also being able to manage the people that are around you, understanding the capacity that you have for it. This was probably one of my biggest lessons I've learned in terms of like the ones that really propelled my growth. This was definitely one of them. Understanding that I need to have the capacity for whatever I pick up. And I can't pick something up and then get frustrated midway through. Like, right? I decided, all right, I'm going to be the legal guardian of these two kids until their case with DCF is out the way. Right? I said that. I was like, I'm willing to step in and do this. It's happening to someone I care for, and I know that parts of the case is really not their fault at all. And these are my nieces. It's my heart. Like, bro, me and the older one that's 7 years old, Starlene, it's Juliana and Starlene. Juliana, like, me and her have gone viral, and people thought she was my kid. I don't know whether it's because we're both light-skinned and we have similar smiles and stuff, but I've gone viral with that little girl because people thought I was her father. And now I'm put in a situation where I'm actually having to play that role. It is hard being a parent. It is hard as shit. There is not a single thing you do. And I think for someone like me that's a perfectionist, I understand that I can't always control how my kid is going to, how they're going to be traumatized and everything like that. But not understanding how to support them and show up for them, that's not enough for me. I know the world is going to happen to them, whether I like it or not. I can't protect them from it, or else they won't have the capacity to deal with it when I'm no longer there to be fully in and guide your actions and stuff. I know I benefited from not having that. But I would have benefited from it 10 times more, and I would have not made a lot of mistakes if I had someone I could go to and be like, hey, this is what I did. So for me, I've understood where it's kind of like as a parent, I'm not that yet, which means like I just have access to the bare minimum of it. It's not like after a year, I'm still going to be with these kids. So some parents, it's like you have to think about every single year. That for me, I'm stressing the 6 months that they're with me, that they were already with me. I'm like, damn, should I start them off with something? And one of my youngest niece is nonverbal. Should I start like helping her try to talk? Maybe adding something physical to words so that way she attaches them together. And at a certain point, she feels like something's missing. Certain parents are careless, or it seems like it doesn't care. At times, maybe that actually helps you out. For them to care that much constantly, you parent based off your fears and anxiety. And yeah, that's one thing I've also learned recently. And some of y'all might figure this out because of the type of parent you have. When a parent is teaching you from a place of fear, guess what they create? They create a very anxious child. You know why? Eventually, the kid picks up on the parent is acting like this because they're scared. And now you just understand this, right? You're learning. You're not aware how things function. When you see them do that and you start recognizing it, what goes on in your head? When I am afraid of something, there are things that are okay for me not to do, even though I know that's how it should be. It's like you know how to act in the situations, but because of everything you're scared of, you're anxious. You don't know how to deal with it. You do other things. So it's important. I don't think anyone should ever become a parent if you've never taken the psychology of parenting. It's a class I took, whatever version of it, I think every parent should take it. But all it is to say, give your parents a grace. You don't have to parent your parent, but like I said, I have a business degree. I'm a business person, right? Like, you can't bring someone in to fix your problems, or tell them to fix your problems if you're not telling them exactly what you need, right? So, I think that's how you got to take it. Try everything you can. And don't try everything you can and very, yeah, there are different approaches, but it's really based off the same things. Like, you try to be logical, but then you bring a shit ton of different examples. That's not really trying something different. If logic worked for that person and then they just needed a different example, absolutely. But if they're an emotional person, switching the examples for logic doesn't work. When I say really has to speak to that person, it has to resonate with them. It has to be the language that they understand the most. And for my mom, that was emotions, and it worked. I'm at a point where I feel like I can talk to my mom. If things are getting overwhelming and she's not really seeing my point, I can cry in front of her, not mine. I think having a space to be that vulnerable with someone who I know loves me unconditionally is something I really needed in this moment. And that's why I kept on drilling into my mother. And I got through it. And the first conversation we had was maybe in 2020. It's 2024 now, and I'm still having to remind her of the exact same thing. But she parented me one way for 20 years. I can't expect her to just drop everything she picked up. Out of the 30 plus something years she's been a parent. See where it's kind of unfair? Like, yeah, you know this doesn't work for you, but you're telling someone, hey, this worked for you for 37 years. I want you to switch it. If you get fucked over because they listened to your approach and it didn't work, they're not going to blame you for it. They're going to blame themselves. So at a certain degree, you have to understand it's like your parent isn't always going to listen to you, and it's not because they don't care. They don't have access to whether or not you're the type of person that's always going to make the best decision for yourself. I had to drill my mother into that. And I mean, where she's giving me advice, I'm like, Mom, I understand this. You're telling me not to do this because of this. And the reason why it's so concerning for you is because if I allow this to happen and I don't have control over it, this is what it may lead to. And if it gets to this point, I know it would kill you because you understand just how hard it is to come back from it. I learned this about my mom a lot. She projects a lot of her fears onto me. But I was very logical and very emotional to be able to break it down and decipher it so that way I wasn't an anxious person. I think pretty much everyone in my family deals with anxiety, somewhat shape or form. We were raised in a third world country where it's really hard not to parent based off your fears because all of your fears are very much real. They're not perceived fears. It's not a perceived reality you created because you're just overthinking and stuff like that. Generally, everything you think could go wrong to the extreme happens very frequently in front of you in a third world country. So I understand why my mom parents based off her fears a lot. She was somewhere where if you ignored your fears, you could lose your life. You could lose a child. Things are different. And I understand that my world is a little different than the one that she lived in for most of her life. I got to give her grace. Damn, y'all are staring a little too much. I'm not going to lie. But that kind of made me feel uncomfortable. But generally, understand this, right? If your parents are still trying to show up and love you, if they truly didn't care, they'd stop doing it altogether. Our parents are fucked up in different ways, in different levels. So just understand that. And if it's one of those things where I'm really not going to have to change that, and you love this person, you're out of a relationship with them, figure out how to make it work for yourself. At a certain point, I think we're too stuck on, I need to have it this way. If it can't happen, I still want to have my mother in my life. If it means I have to move at a certain point because it gets too hard, I'm still going to want to call her every fucking week or every single day to decompress. There's alternatives that are just as good. Sometimes you just got to let go of the thing that you're so attached to. And that generally goes for anything in life. I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate you guys for coming in and listening. If you got to this point and you heard everything, generally, I love you. And I appreciate you for the person that you are trying to be. A lot of my friends don't listen to these things. And it's not a bad thing. It's not like, oh, they really don't support me. No, it's because, and I'm saying my friends, not like, oh, I take it personally, but more so like, I know people that are amazing and they don't listen to these types of things because their self-growth and their development isn't a priority, or it's not prioritized over a lot of things that it should be. So the fact that you're someone listening to this, not just because you think I am attractive, not because you just like my voice, but you're listening because you want to better yourself. I want you to know I love and care for people like that. I don't need to know who it is. And the reason why I care for anyone that is like that is because I've came across a lot of people that weren't like that. And those experiences always left me deprived of something. So knowing there's someone out there that's trying their hardest to not be that type of person anymore, or to just maintain the good they have, you're doing something a lot of people aren't doing. If you're someone who's not in your 20s yet, you're doing something majority of people around your age aren't doing. And around my age, 24 to 28-ish, is the time when you feel like you figured it out. And then life keeps on throwing shit at you saying, no, you don't, no, you don't, no, you don't. So for me, I understand that I don't have it all figured out, right? So I'm proud of you for figuring this out. I am proud of you for putting the work where it matters. And here, you don't understand how hard it is to love yourself and make sacrifices for yourself. Because there's no validation, there's no gratification for it. There's normally when you do it for someone, there's, thank you so much. Like, I really appreciate you. You're this type of person. I find it very hard to do that for myself. Even me, that's at this point that I am now. A lot of my growth has been because I wanted to be able to support the people around me. It wasn't for myself. So being a people pleaser has its benefits, but it can't continue like this. So I got to change. And since y'all are here to change as well, I'm very grateful to have a community of people that care about themselves, that care about what I have to say because it brings value to them. So I appreciate you. And if y'all want, go to my Instagram and join that community, right? I like dark humor. So on random nights, I'm watching a lot of dark humor stuff and I'm like, yo, I know they would laugh off this. So I send it in there. Or if I see something really deep and I'm like, yo, this advice could really change someone's life, I'll send it in there. So if you go on my Instagram at chance_strive, chance as in give me a second chance, strive as in striving for greatness. Go on that, join the community that I have, and I promise you there's a lot of good stuff in it. Especially if you're someone who cares about this stuff, that community is for you and I want you in it. Generally, that community makes me happy as hell. So I'm looking for y'all to be part of it. I love y'all. Keep being great. And I'm out.